Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Navigating Growth, where we showcase companies that are doing new and unique things. My name is Sal Imami from Better Call Sal, and co-hosting with me is Kevin Hooper from Hanging with Mr. Hooper. Now, think back to when you were in high school or college. Was it easy? Was it difficult? You're attending classes, trying to get good grades, building a social life. While doing that, imagine if you had issues with executive function, such as ADHD. That would compound challenges of high school and college exponentially. Our guest today is helping students with executive function difficulties navigating through their high school and their college years. To tell us more, I'd like to introduce Michelle Raz and Sonia Merritt, the co-founders of Thrivister. Michelle and Sonia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sal.
So let's start off by telling us, what is Thrivister?
Thrivister is an academic coaching company. We work with high school and college students. These students come to us that are struggling with executive functioning skills. So we work with them to reach their academic goals, develop structure and routines that are going to help them with their time management, their planning, organization, emotional regulation. We find that students that may have felt that they didn't belong in the high school or college scene, that they have really worked through those challenges, developed some successful strategies alongside of working with our coaches in a very methodical, proven method that has been established over a 15-year time so that they can graduate from high school. They can have their aspirations to go on to further higher education. And in the ones that are in college, the retention rate of those students, their success is exponential.
How did you come up with the idea of forming this as a startup, as a company?
My son, when he was in ninth grade, was just struggling terribly. I looked for tutors. Actually did secure a psychologist, therapy. We were doing all kinds of things to try to support him in this journey because it was terrible seeing him struggle the way he was struggling. So I reached out to try to find some resources to help him. And what I found was an ADHD coach named Michelle Raz. And that's where our story began. We coached all through high school. Michelle worked with my son until he graduated. Here we were 4 years later, and my son had just graduated. She and I are out at dinner, and we are just going, whew. It was just a big sigh of relief. And I'm like, I cannot believe this long journey we've been on. This is incredible. And it's so frustrating. And I just hate that we've had to go through this. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just me, it's my son too. It's our entire family. It's a very all-encompassing problem that affects everyone that's affiliated with the kid that's experiencing this. Just from there on, we just said, you know what? We need to get away from this model of, the individual coach working with an individual person. And there's nothing wrong with the one-on-one because we do a form of that, but it needed to be standardized and it needed to be scaled. And so with the experience that I had in the business background, that's where the idea of Thrivister was born.
Walk us through the end of that dinner through to like now. What was that journey like?
We stepped back and kind of had an incubator type of period. We got together and penciled things out, ideas. We looked at how many students potentially could be needing this service and what we could do to service all of them. I would say it took a couple of years. This was a long time in the making. And we put our heads together and said, let's do this. Let's pull it together and do a beta testing. And so from there, we contacted friends and relatives and friends of friends and said, we'd like to, try this out. And we had a couple of sample coaches that we got together. I developed the initial flagship training of, taking it out of my head and putting it down on paper and what that would look like to be able to train other people. And we went through this period of a beta testing for about a year, took that information, refined it, and then started with our first group of coaches. And so from there, we opened the doors and we did it methodically and rolled out slow so that we could take that learning experience from the beta that we did, put it into action. And Sonia and I and a very close-knit team would meet constantly and starting to look at what we needed to refine, what we could add to it, how could we scale this? Every other day was a new SOP. Anybody in the business, right, could relate to that. And it was just, it's been a grind and every day. But the beauty of it is that because both of us came from a background, my initial reason why I started coaching was for my own daughter. And we all had this story of students in pain, not meeting their fullest potential, not seeing them graduate or, looking to drop out. And because we had that personal experience, we were methodical, we were determined, we wanted to get it right. We knew the method worked. The success rate is astronomical when done right. And we worked really hard to get it to where we could take this information, train coaches, and now we have done that to where we have coaches that can also now train other coaches. We're now at a point where we can see the benefits on the scaling end of things. We're seeing this concept that we came up with actually in action, working. And it's an amazing journey, and it's exciting where we are right now to see this success.
What kind of partnerships have you engaged with, and which ones have worked and which ones haven't?
Every relationship that we have is a partnership. So we approach our entire business as a partnership. We're a partner with our parents. We're partners with our students. We're partners with our coaches. And it's that collaborative process that we feel like is our special sauce, because we get so much buy-in and so much just unity out of what we're trying to do. And I think that's really been very, very important. So from an operations standpoint, we are very much into leveraging every piece of partnership that we can.
Our internal partnering that we do is been a lot of our growth right now. We're going, really across the board, and it's solid. It's a foundation. With that, we look at partnering with a lot of different areas, such as the medical professional fields. Those professionals are helping that student and, diagnose, treat. But then there's this other component of the academic success, and there's a need for that. So that's a beautiful partnership with psychologists, psychiatrists, ADHD testing centers. Those partnerships are very, very successful for us. And it's the parents, when they find us through that field, are very relieved and happy. And often we hear, wow, how did we not know about you? Here we are out there with those partnerships are beautiful, and we were expanding on those. Then we have educational partnerships. And I'm going to say with that's been a bit of a struggle with us, because the educational institutions have their own internal network. And it's been a period of educating them that we're not there. We don't compete with them. We complement them. Our clientele are ones that are falling through the system cracks. So they're the ones that everybody needs to be boots on the ground helping those students. So we like to partner with student success people, coaches that are already working to delegate. And then I say we are the boots on the ground. So we're really diving into the individual personalized aspect of that student. And that piece right there is where we need to have an education piece with those partners that have resources and better understand how we can supplement those resources and work together. The successful institutions that do see that in education really get that value, because they're struggling with their retention rates. They're struggling with students going from maybe a strong institution into a higher institution, where maybe, especially from the elementary, high school years into college, that transition. They don't have those resources to make sure that the job that they did and the resources they had can continue on to college. That's where we step in. I often say, we're like the suitcase. When you go off to college, just bring us along with you, because we're going to help them become independent, to utilize the skills that they've learned in the past and help them go forward to deepen those skills and to be those independent young adults when they get to the colleges. And then, of course, at the college level, we're helping them stay in college. Some of the colleges, the national average is 61%, for graduation. And some of the colleges I've seen as low as in the 30s. And that's, something where there's something missing there. And we can be such a valuable resource for those students in those colleges to help them up their retention rates, help their graduation rates, help the transfer rates if they're a junior college going from a 2-year to a 4-year. And we are a integral part of that process of helping them be successful there.
If you had a time machine and you could go back to that dinner and advise yourselves, what would be the advice you'd give yourselves?
There is no action that is a failure or the wrong thing to do. It's a learning experience. So I'm going to qualify it with that because we have learned so much. There could have been some smoother paths along the way as you're growing a business and you're jumping in, you've never done this before. And each individual business that you encounter has got to have its own unique set of challenges and strengths. And so personally, for me, a roadmap of each different area that we needed to build in the company and having somebody that could lay that out for us ahead of time. We did it, and we learned a lot. And I will say that it was a necessary evil as well. If you're looking for advice and you're worried about the financial aspect in the beginning, everything is just so expensive. It's worth it in my regard to seek that advice and not go through quite as much pain.
There's a path that you go on, and there's a reason for it. And that there's a lot of learning that has to happen along the way. And we have had our fair share of pain. So I would say embrace the pain and know that there's a lesson in there. But the only other real aha for me was that I had not ever had to raise capital before. I've always been able to bootstrap all the businesses that I've had in the past. And this is the first one that we didn't. So I would say what I learned out of this whole thing was start with your capital raising campaign much sooner. As soon as you think you're going to start to run out of capital, you better be on that.
You said embrace the pain. What allows you to embrace the pain is the underlying motivation for why you start the business in the first place, which is that you see this most precious asset that we have as a species, which is our children, and suffering from something that you can, not only do you have the confidence and the passion, but you've got the experience to know that it can be solved. And now all you've got to do is figure out how to solve it for everybody. And using that to motivate yourselves, I think is very inspiring from my perspective. The second part is that in your growth story, it's interesting. You said seek advice from people to help you, and yet, Michelle, what you did was you described a very classic product development, product management approach. You experienced it in real time as you were taking this thing that you were doing on a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-few basis to then create scalability, that train the trainer concept. And then lastly, and it comes across just in the passion that's in your words, this notion that it does take a village, that everyone from the employees that you have to the parents to the institutions that you're working with, you have to view them as partnerships. And then occasionally, and this is again comes down to the learning aspect, occasionally some of those partnerships can get rocky because someone might see you as competition. And then you've got to find those complementarities that exist between what you're bringing to the marketplace and how their own businesses can thrive and get better just because of partnering with you. So what an inspiring story. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Sal and Mami, thank you for your partnership on this journey, everybody. This has been another episode of Navigating Growth. See you next time. Thank you very much.